Ladies and gentlemen, we've got a major update regarding the Nebraska football head coaching situation. Of course, Scott Frost fired yesterday. Nebraska couldn't take it anymore. They fire him less than a month before his buyout gets cut in half. And it's a really interesting situation where Scott Frost is actually so bad at his job, he gets more money. And I'm going to talk about that. But first, let's read the tweet here. It says, news. I've never claimed to be a breaking news person, but here we go. Iowa State head coach Matt Campbell is the primary target for Nebraska AD Trev Albers. Sources told me it is highly expected that Campbell will eventually be the next head coach of Nebraska. That would presumably happen in the offseason. Of course, Nebraska right now rolling with an interim head coach. We will discuss the full odds, who's in the running for the Nebraska head coach position. But first, the overall story on Scott Frost, the upset, the loss 45-42 on Saturday. Nebraska, we all assumed they were waiting until at least October 1st to get that buyout cut in half. You can see Frost will receive his full $15 million buyout. Albers told reporters at a news conference the buyout amount would have been dropped to $7.5 million, cut in half on October 1st. And Nebraska later said it's not fair to the program. And to be honest with you, they're right. Their AD is right. Scott Frost is a complete lame duck head coach for the next month. Everyone would know after this loss, the only reason they're keeping Scott Frost is to avoid paying the $8 million buyout. But Scott Frost ends up being so bad, he gets fired earlier, so he gets the extra $8 million, and he walks away with a $15 million buyout. I don't think Scott Frost is very happy. You can have all the money in the world, but his legacy with Nebraska is not very good as a head coach. And then we can take a look at the major candidates. Of course, that rumor that Matt Campbell. Guys, I don't think Matt Campbell would be the best fit for Nebraska football, or that's not the first person I would look at personally. Nebraska is a really good job. To me, the only major drawback with Nebraska, extreme lack of recruiting base. The Midwest, especially where Nebraska is, the states surrounding it, there's just no talent nowadays compared to the 90s in terms of recruiting. You've got to go to California, you've got to go to Texas, you've got to go to Georgia, you've got to go to Florida, you've got to go to the Midwest, Michigan, Ohio. It's very tough. But as for the infrastructure Nebraska has, they have the best fan base in college football. I would say minimum top 3. Minimum. Just unbelievable support. They should be able to hire someone really good. They're not going to get anyone they want, but still they should be able to get a really good coach. Of course, we all thought Scott Frost was such a perfect fit coming off that perfect season at UCF, returning to Nebraska where he played. And it's just shocking it's been this bad. They gave him, last year you had the 3-9 season. All right, you're at least competitive. You almost beat Michigan. You're in it against Ohio State. A couple of bounces go differently. You have some major upset wins. And then this year you start off by losing to Northwestern. Northwestern ends up losing to Duke. Just to compound how bad that loss was. And then the Georgia Southern loss, the nail in the coffin. Nebraska coaching candidates, Mark Stoops. This one's interesting, Mark Stoops, with the whole Kentucky thing. Matt Campbell, lead list of coaches to replace Scott Frost. So first on Mark Stoops, they're saying he might be interested in this job. Kentucky, the whole debacle with their John Calipari, their basketball coach. We know Kentucky is a basketball school. Maybe Stoops wants to go to a full-blown football, based school, and that would be his move. And also you would, have a much better chance at winning the Big Ten West, although it's probably not even going to matter now with the divisions getting cut when USC and UCLA join. But I would say, undoubtedly, if I can choose between the Nebraska football coaching job and the Kentucky football coaching job, Nebraska 100 times out of 100. The question becomes, does Nebraska want Mark Stoops? Or does Nebraska want Matt Campbell? To me, they're very similar in who I would take. Matt Campbell has kind of been the golden child, at least the past 6 years. It's kind of worn off recently. There were rumors when Harbaugh was trying to go to the NFL. He ends up getting denied by the Vikings. If Harbaugh would have went to the NFL, would Matt Campbell be the head coach at Michigan? I think a lot of shine got cut off of Matt Campbell after Iowa State's disappointing season last year when they were the preseason number 7 team in the country. You had Breece Hall, you had a returning senior quarterback, and they started like 3-2, and I think they lost to Iowa. But there is Matt Campbell listed as a top choice as well, and it says several sources have told CBS that Campbell is interested in Nebraska. So guys, I would have to say we put together these two sources, the one source saying Nebraska wants Matt Campbell, this source from CBS saying, Matt Campbell wants Nebraska, and this seems like a match here between Matt Campbell, but we have to caution ourselves. We've heard this situation with Matt Campbell going to a number of different schools. Is this finally the time he makes the jump? There are rumors of other coaches. Mickey Joseph, the interim head coach. When it comes to interim head coaches just in general, it's always a ridiculous uphill battle. I think Nebraska will have more energy this weekend, but Mickey Joseph being, going from interim to being the actual head coach would be quite surprising, especially with this development that they want Matt Campbell. It also lists Bill O'Brien. To me, that's a complete disaster. 9 times out of 10, taking one of these assistants from Alabama doesn't work out. Of course, it did work out with Kirby Smart, but Bill O'Brien, offensive coordinator, I would not want that if I was Nebraska. Jim Leonhard, it seems pretty unrealistic, him leaving Wisconsin. I think with Jim Leonhard, there's also major recruiting concerns. Will he be able to recruit the offensive side of the football? If you're telling me I've got 2 candidates and I can have either Matt Campbell or Jim Leonhard, as good as Jim Leonhard is with the defense, I'm taking Matt Campbell. Matt Campbell is an Urban Meyer type coach, Nick Saban type coach, to where it's not just defense, it's not just offense, it's the entire program, right? And that's the kind of coach I think Nebraska would want. Gary Patterson, that seems like a weak hire if they were to go with Gary Patterson. He kind of really fizzled out at TCU. He can be a good, he's an analyst. I thought he was like an assistant coach with Texas. Apparently he's an analyst. And it says this makes so much sense, and it says he has plenty left in the tank at 62. He seemed to peter out at TCU. I disagree with this. Gary Patterson petered out, and he's 62 years old. I would not think they would hire Gary Patterson. Urban Meyer, the rumors are floating with Urban and Nebraska. How desperate do you get if you are Nebraska? And if you're Urban, to me, it just doesn't seem like the right fit. If I were to give Urban Meyer a job, I would say maybe the Florida State job. But I think Deion's getting that. But I would say maybe if I had to pick, maybe the Florida State job. Of course, with Urban, it's interesting. You get all that support. You've got a ton of money. You can get NIL stuff together. The recruiting, you have connections in Florida. You have connections in California. They would, not be the best recruiting team in the Big Ten, but they would move significantly up. They already do a decent job recruiting as it is. Urban, man, it's so tough. Would I rather have Urban Meyer or Matt Campbell? Urban is just so unstable, and people point to Urban's record being so good. I mean, Florida was definitely a great job. Ohio State, he had an unbelievable situation. Just an unbelievable situation. He joins Ohio State. The Big Ten is weak. This is back in 2012. The Big Ten is weak. Ohio State runs through it. And then the Big Ten gets a little bit better, but Ohio State has built up so much at that point, and that is thanks to Urban. Urban took Ohio State recruiting to another level, and now Ryan Day has been able to sustain it, but it's such a tough call. Matt Campbell, the safe commodity, versus Urban Meyer. Obviously, there is some public backlash or whatever. I think that would all blow over, honestly. The whole, people don't like Urban Meyer, really. I think that stuff would blow over in like a week. But either way, you can see just the overall names. And then here are more candidates. Mickey Joseph, Gary Patterson, Jim Leonard, Deion Sanders. I don't see Deion Sanders leaving Jackson State for Nebraska. But that's just me speculating. I don't know. I think if Deion leaves, it's going to be for FSU. And then Larry Johnson. Larry Johnson is far too old. Larry Johnson, people have been negative recruiting against Larry Johnson for years because everyone thinks he's going to retire. He's not going to be a head coach. And then these are the overall official odds. It does have Matt Campbell as the favorite. Mickey Joseph, the current interim, second, and then Mark Stoops, third. So that kind of seems to be the top three right now in terms of Nebraska head coaching search. Of course, this is a very early development in this whole coaching situation. You can see some other names down there. Urban is down there, Deion Sanders, PJ Fleck. PJ Fleck really likes Minnesota. Certainly Nebraska is a better job than Minnesota, but PJ Fleck is getting paid enough to where he could value his family not being uprooted and he wants to stay in Minnesota. This year will be really interesting for PJ Fleck too, because people think Minnesota with the veteran quarterback, the running back duo, they could win the West, which would really up him. Matt Rule, the current Panthers head coach. Matt Rule, I'm not high on him at all, man. He just looks like he has no clue what he's doing. I was watching the Browns game against the Panthers. Dude's just like a deer in headlights on the sideline. Ndamukong Suh. How is Ndamukong Suh 25-1? It should be 400-1. Ndamukong Suh to be the next coach of Nebraska football. But guys, I think when you compare everything and you compile the rumors and the overall situation right now, Nebraska football, the front runner is Matt Campbell. We've heard this before. Matt Campbell's been rumored for practically every job, I know, but it sounds like Nebraska wants Matt Campbell. Matt Campbell realizes he's done all he can do at Iowa State at this point. Iowa State is not good this year. Yes, they beat Iowa, but they have a very low ceiling in a tough Big 12 conference. So I think Matt Campbell could decide, he could recognize, I've done everything I can do. We were preseason number 7. We lost a few times. I'm sick of it. I'm going to go and try and make my name. And this is, I've waited. I've been patient. Now I've got the backing of everyone in Nebraska. Nebraska is a really good job. And this could be a situation where, I don't know if Urban Meyer would be open to this, but it could be a battle between Matt Campbell and Urban Meyer. Do you go safe or do you go for it all and take Urban and deal with the public backlash, but also get your recruiting way up? Guys, I'm not like the thing that people have to realize. If Urban Meyer goes to Nebraska, they're not immediately going to be like a Big Ten contender. I know Urban's had tons of success at Florida and Ohio State, but this would be a different situation, in my opinion. I don't want to compare the NFL to college, but it's like Urban Meyer goes to the Jaguars and people are like, oh, he's been successful everywhere, so he's going to be successful there, and you see what happens. So not saying he couldn't do good things at Nebraska. He could 100% turn that program around. It's a very interesting decision between the safe route versus the wild route. And I think definitely, Gary Patterson, there's no way you're taking him over Matt Campbell. There's just no way. Matt Campbell is younger. He's got more in the tank. He's more energetic. He can recruit better. Come on. Matt Campbell seems like, of these current top candidates, that's the number one. If they could somehow get Deion, certainly. I don't think it's going to happen. I think Deion is coaching at FSU next year, not Nebraska. But if they could get him, certainly you would get him. Your recruiting would go through the roof at that point as well. There's interesting candidates. This was something Nebraska needed to do. They needed a shot in the arm. They fire Scott Frost. And I give Nebraska a lot of credit for eating the $15 million buyout, not having a lame duck coach, saying it's not fair to these players. We will pay the extra $8 million. That's actually a really good look for Nebraska, instead of doing this ridiculous charade where they're like, oh, we're going to stick with him. Yeah, you're sticking with him until October 1st, so you don't have to pay $8 million. That's what we all thought was going to happen, but it didn't happen. So, guys, very early in this search, Nebraska, this is a huge job. We will see what happens. We're going to keep people updated here, guys, but make sure you're following me on Twitter. Link to that's always in the description. I'm, of course, the Depressed Ginger. Thank you for watching.